Hi everyone, I'm Barker and welcome back to my general crafting but mainly crochet YouTube channel. And today we are back with your favourite series and one of my personal favourite series is as well, AI to reality. And I have completely lost track of what number this one is, so I'll just pop it up there. Okay, today's victim is this AI generated hedgehog. It's got some lovely daisies in its spikes and it's holding a lovely bouquet. So let's get started. And the first thing we're going to start with is a sketch. So we want the hedgehog to have a nice fat body, but actually its head needs to be slightly wider than its body, so I think we are going to have some balance problems here. I'll want to leave the top of this open just to make head attachment easier. A main feature of this hedgehog's face is the snout. Now I do want to build the snout into the construction of the face. I don't want it to be a separate piece, as I feel that's what the AI generated image is portraying. It's not portraying a separate snout, it's more of an incorporated one. I'm just giving myself a little bit of a reference there for the feet and the arms. And the ears are just going to be basic circles, I'm thinking at this point. Okay, starting with the head. Now, everything is going to be worked on the round for this hedgehog. So far, I believe it is anyway. But I am actually starting the head with a chain 4 and then working along the chain and then along the opposite side of the chain. And then from that point on, I'll start working in rounds. It'll just help the head get that more oblong rather than circular look, which I feel it does need. So now at this point I've stopped increasing and I've moved on to just doing continuous rounds of double crochet. Remember, I do work in UK terms, so if you are a US follower for terms, this is single crochet. I'm using the equivalent of Aran weight yarn here, so 2 strands of double knit held together, and I'm using a 4.5mm hook. Now that I've got to the position start adding in the snout, I'm doing so by placing half treble crochet, so that is half double if you're US terms, in the front loops only at about the midway point of the head. Now increasing out to a point I don't think is going to be all that difficult, but I do think it's going to be more the increases that are going to be the tricky part. Well, I was wrong there. It actually was the increases out that took a little bit more work. I did have to unpick, as you're seeing it here, frogging back a couple of rounds. Basically, I just needed to put increases in where the snout begins and ends just to get more of the shape. I am going to be leaving a lot of the additional shape to the nose. So when the nose is fitted on, it will add a little bit more of a point to the snout. And working on the underside of the snout actually turned out to be fairly easy. It was simply putting in the decreases where I'd increased before, and that was it. It shaped up quite nicely, and then it was just a case of finishing off the head. And then it was onto the body. The body is simply created using a magic circle and increases by 6 every round until I got to as wide as I wish the body to be. And then it was a case of doing a few decreases with a few standard double crochet rounds in between until I got it as narrow as I needed and as high as I needed it to be. So everything's been really straightforward so far, and we're moving on to the legs. I've already started them here. I think they are as tall or as wide as I would actually like the feet to be. So I've just done this with a magic circle working in 4s. I'm going to do some decreases on one side of the foot now and not on the opposite side, just so I can get a bit of a slope going with the foot, so it'll be easier to attach it to the underbelly of the belly of the hedgehog. And as I said when I was doing the sketching, the ears are just basic circles on the round that are then flattened, so I'll be able to give them some more shape later on when I attach. And this is the arm. It is just a basic tube. It's slightly narrowed at the top. So I'm just adding some stuffing now to the body and the head because I want to get it basically all built up so that I can figure out how I'm putting the spikes and everything else on. As you can see, the body is significantly smaller than the head, which does mean I am going to have problems with balance like I feared. I'm trying to compensate that here, looking forward with how I'm putting on the feet. I'm putting them quite wide apart, making sure that the vast majority of it is pointing forward. It should help with the balance somewhat. Okay, now moving on to the arm. So this arm is already attached, and as you can see here, it's pausable because when I looked at the AI image, it looked to be bent, but not in a way that crochet would do it. So for me, that means that we're using wire inside. So I'm just putting in a tiny bit of stuffing. And the piece of wire I'm using is 3 times the, well, about, no, not 3 times. The wire I'm using is twice the length of the arm. That's just so I can bend over all of the ends and make sure they're not going to stick out anywhere. To be honest, it may have been better if I actually had the wire going across the middle of the hedgehog's body and then into each arm. That could be something I'd change when it comes to doing the pattern. I always leave the wires as optional in the patterns. It took me a while to get used to using it. A lot of the time, a lot of things done in crochet now do feel like you need to be a bit of a jack of all trades. And speaking of being a jack of all trades, here's another one, sculpting. So I'm just going to use some thread here to pull a few details of the face in, just to give them a bit more definition. So this means just putting pins in and then running some thread through where I want the eyes, just to give the head a bit more of a dent where the eyes would be, and just to tighten up the snout area, make it a bit more defined. Now that that's done, I'll need to see if I can find some eyes that will fit this. Being lucky, I do have 2 brown eyes left in my coloured eyes, and they do seem to be the right size, so that's good. I really am going to have to purchase some more of these soon. But of course, I can't click these safety eyes into position because I have already closed the head. Now, this is not normally a mistake I make, but I do know a remedy for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a black backing for the eyes. I'm going to secure them onto this black backing and then stitch the black backing onto the head. And then hopefully that black will also help give the eyes a bit more of a definition, and that way I won't have to worry about like putting these eyelash / eyebrow details in later. And here is the construction of the nose. It was really quick. It was simply 2 rounds. First round was 5, then it was an increase, 1 double crochet and another increase, and that was it. And it was done. And I was correct. The nose definitely finishes off the snout perfectly. It just helps give the whole structure more definition and more character, and I'm just adding here a smiley face for good measure. And now it's time to tackle these spikes. So I'm thinking I'm going to tackle these spikes in the same way that I would actually tackle hair. So the first thing to do is actually to create a skull cap for this little hedgehog. And then all of the spikes will be fitted onto it. So here's just me quickly mocking up a little skull cap. It's just on the round, it's nothing fancy. And just the last round is slightly decreased just so it fits snugly. And here it is, all on. Now you are ready for your spikes. I think these eyes are looking a bit too strong, aren't they? Well, we'll see later. Now the spikes, I'm going to create them in 3 sizes, a little one, a medium one, and a big one. And as you can see here, I've been able to use the joints of my fingers as guides to the length. Each spike has been started off though the same way, on the round, and using the dreaded number for most crocheters, 3. That's right, I started with 3 in a magic circle and worked from there. And I apologise for this everyone, but I don't seem to have any footage of me attaching the spikes of the hedgehog at all. I've checked everywhere, I don't seem to have any footage of it, and I'm sure I remember checking over that footage. So I don't know what's happened there. So we're going to just have to move on to the daisies, and I will show you how everything looks when it's all together towards the end of the video. Now, for these daisies, I did want them to have a slightly different look to them. So I've broke out the milk cotton. Now, if you haven't been here for any of the previous videos that have involved milk cotton is this absolutely phenomenally soft yarn coming out of Asia, which has no cotton in it whatsoever. It's a mainly synthetic fibre made of polyester, but it can sometimes contain a thread made out of milk proteins, hence the milk in the name, but not all of them do. Now, from what I'm working with here, I've got a yellow, a white and a green. From the feel of them, I believe only the green here has the actual milk protein in it. But unfortunately, the packaging doesn't actually share with me the materials used for it. I've tried Google Translate on them before. Now, the flower, the inside is yellow, but as you can see on the AI image, this is this gap on the yellow. So I've done a chain of 5, joined it into a loop, and then I have crocheted 9 double crochet around the entire loop. And now I'm adding the petals, and the petals are very simple. I've chained 3. Then in the next stitch, I've put a half treble, a treble, and another half treble. Then I've chained 3 again, slip stitched into the next stitch, and then repeated the pattern. So if you're US, that pattern is chain 3 in the next stitch, a half double, a double and a half double, chain 3, slip stitch into the next stitch and restart. And I got 5 petals onto each of my flowers. So I put 3 flowers for the hedgehog's hair, and then I've made 5 for the bouquet. Now moving on to my green, I am going to work from the bottom up. I'm just going to start with a basic magic circle. I think I used only 4 double crochet. Nope, sorry, I used 3 double crochet, and then I extended up as I went. I expanded out as I extended up the stem. And after many interruptions by my children, I reached the top where the flowers would be attached. I did a chain, then I worked variant heights of stitches down the chain to create a leaf effect. I made 4 of these so I could attach one of the flowers to each of the leaves and then put the 5th flower into the middle. And then it was time to put everything in place, including the hedgehog's ears. Now, I did decide to take off these eyes to make the black background smaller and then reattach them, and I'm so glad I did. And I've also done something that I don't normally do. I've broke out my fabric paints and I've given this hedgehog a little bit of blush. And then it was a case of mucking around with this bouquet and the arms to get the look that I wanted. Now, I'm going to show you the spikes here. Now, you can see with the spikes there is actually 2 shades of brown, and that's because this first shade I simply ran out. I did actually debate doing the skull cap in this darker brown to give the hedgehog spikes more dimension. That's why I actually had this brown out. And I do wish I'd done it now. So like to have parts of the darker brown poking through on the base, and it would have given the hairline a bit more definition. So I definitely think when I come to doing the written pattern of this, that I will actually recommend a slightly darker brown for the skull cap. But there you go, there she is. I am so happy with her little bit of blush. But unfortunately, she is still a bit back heavy, which is why I actually stopped with the amount of spikes that I did. If you can see on the image, the spikes do look a lot fuller from the back, but if I'd done that, she wouldn't even have the very precarious balance that she does now. She'd simply be far too back heavy, which is a shame because you don't even have a booty. And we're going to go with the obvious name. Her name is Daisy. So say goodbye to YouTube, Daisy.